So before we look into codependency, we actually have to look into how codependency is developed. Codependency is developed through a thing called attachment theory. So attachment styles are formed in childhood between the child and his or her parent or primary caregiver. So we've learned now that these attachment styles play a major role in our romantic lives. There are 4 kinds of attachment styles, but in this course, I'll only be talking about 3. So the first attachment style is the anxious attachment style. This is basically the codependent. And so the anxious attachment style person is typically the person who blows the relationship out of proportion. You tend to need constant reassurance. You tend to make the relationship bigger than it actually is. You tend to view every partial disagreement as a breakup moment, and you get really anxious and stressed out when that moment comes up. You don't typically handle fights well, and you require constant reassurance like texting all day. The next attachment style is we have the secure attachment style. These guys are the healthy, stable people in relationships. They're also usually seen as a safe haven. Secure people tend to form healthy and balanced relationships. They're the people attuned to their partner's needs, as well as great at communicating their own needs. They got great communication skills, they're comfortable with space, but also if you need a hug, they're comfortable with connection as well. The third attachment style is the counter-dependent, or in other words, we actually call it the avoidant attachment style. They're the opposite of the codependent. They're typically the people who push back in a relationship and want their own space. They value independence and view your need for love as a weakness. The avoidant partner is the person who forgets to call you back, even though they promised they would. They get distracted with their pursuits and forget that they were supposed to meet you half an hour ago. You might even view them as self-absorbed, cold, and distant. So there are a lot of factors that go into how codependency is developed, but for the most part, it is developed through childhood. Maybe as a codependent, you had a father or mother who never gave you love, so you're trying so hard to fill that empty void that they never gave you. Maybe a parent told you boundaries were wrong, and so you grew up boundaryless. Now, I urge you not to be angry with your mom and dad. I want to encourage you to have compassion and forgiveness for yourself, but also forgiveness towards your parents. Quite possible that they went through something quite traumatic in their childhood, and that's just the way they were raised, and so they didn't know any better. But the most important aspect is this aspect of forgiveness and moving on and letting go. So in their research, Dr. Philip Shaver and Dr. Cindy Hazan found that 60% of people have a secure attachment style, while 20% have an avoidant attachment style, and 20% have an anxious attachment style. If you're curious, I'm going to cite my sources in the description below. But the point of this study is that it's quite beautiful knowing that 60% of the people you probably could date have an attachment style that's secure. There's a 20% chance of dating another codependent. There's a 20% chance of dating someone who doesn't like love and is an avoidant. So that's the current statistic. There's 60% of people with the secure attachment style, 20% are anxious, and 20% are avoidant. So I'll see you in the next segment.